This film changed my entire outlook on a genre. But let's go back to the start. We all know Stanley Kubrick, right? I mean, he's made some of the greatest films of all time. 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, and tons more. Well, recently, I decided to watch one of his lesser known films, and let's just say I was blown away. I was shocked about how real it felt and how different it was, and that film was Paths of Glory. Paths of Glory came out in 1957 and was Kubrick's fourth feature film. It could broadly be called a war film, but it's so much more than just that. War films usually follow a simple idea: soldiers fighting an enemy, trying to survive, and sometimes becoming the hero of the story. But Paths of Glory doesn't really care about any of that. It's completely different, because in this film, the enemy isn't the people in the trenches in front of you, it's the people above you giving you the orders. Going into this film, I was expecting something pretty standard, but with that classic Kubrick twist. The film is set during the First World War, which is often overlooked by a lot of war films. And the idea of the film is simple. There's this mission that the soldiers are ordered to carry out. The problem is that the mission is pretty much impossible, and the opening conversation makes that clear from the beginning. You already know it's not going to work. It's a suicide mission, and that's what makes it feel so strange. Because normally, these films, even if things go badly, it feels like there's still a chance. But Kubrick manages to not give us that hope. It feels like the outcome has already been decided. Maybe it's the pushback from the general, or the talk of stars and awards, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be a success. And after that beginning conversation, the plan starts to get set into motion. And this is where it really started to click for me, because up until this point, it just feels like a bad situation. But as soon as the mission becomes real, it starts to feel intentional. Like this isn't just a risky decision, it's a decision that's already been accepted as a failure. And what stood out to me was how casually it's all treated. You've got these generals discussing it almost like it's routine. There's no real urgency, no sense of doubt. It's just a quiet confidence that it will go ahead. The decision has already been made, and that's what makes it frustrating to watch, because you can see it coming. You know that the soldiers don't really have a chance, and yet everything keeps moving forwards anyway. And the more you sit with that, the more it stops feeling like a war film and starts feeling like something else entirely. It feels like a system where decisions are made at the top, passed down, and carried out no matter the consequence. And I think the moment that really sets all of this up is the early scenes in the trenches. Before anything actually happens, you spend a bit of time down there with the soldiers. And there's this conversation where one of them asks something along the lines of, "Are you excited to go out there and kill some Germans?" And it's such a strange moment, because on paper, that's exactly what you'd expect in a war film. But here, it just doesn't land like that at all. There's no energy behind it, no real confidence. If anything, it feels forced. It feels like he's saying what he thinks he's supposed to say, and the response to it is even more telling. It's not some big heroic reply, it's awkward, a bit uncertain, and that kind of sets the tone for all the soldiers. They don't feel like characters, they feel like people. There's no big speeches, no clear types, just a group of guys trying to process what's about to happen. And that's where someone like Private Farrell really stood out to me. He's not presented as strong or capable. If anything, he comes across as nervous, a bit unpredictable, and like he's kind of struggling to hold it all together. And that's what makes him feel real. He doesn't react in a way that feels cinematic. He reacts in a way that feels human. Like there's fear there, and not in a dramatic way, just in a very honest and uncomfortable way. Like he's actually aware of what's happening, but doesn't really know how to deal with it. And it actually reminded me a bit of Private Pyle from Full Metal Jacket. Not in the sense that they're the same character, but in the way that they both feel completely out of depth and out of place in the situation that they're in. Like they're not built for it, but they're expected to go through it anyway. And when you look at the film through that lens, those early trench scenes become really important, because they show you exactly who these people are before everything starts to go wrong. They're not heroes, they're not symbols, they're just people. And that makes everything that comes after hit a little harder. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a ton. Now, back to it. And once the mission actually fails, everything you're expecting kind of happens, but not exactly in the way that you'd think. Because instead of questioning the decision or admitting that it was a mistake, they look for someone to blame. They look for the scapegoat. And that's where the film really leans into the idea of a system, because it's not random, it's not emotional, it feels organized. Like there has to be consequences, but those consequences can't go upwards, so they go down instead. A few soldiers are picked out, not because they did anything particularly wrong, but because someone has to take the fall. And the trial that follows just makes that even clearer. It doesn't feel like a real trial, it feels like something that's already been decided. The questions don't matter, the outcome doesn't really change. It's more about justifying what's already been set in motion. And that's what makes it so frustrating to watch, because at this point you're not wondering what's going to happen, you already know. And there's this moment earlier on in the film during the battle where one of the officers calls for artillery to be fired onto his own men for being unable to move, which is absolutely insane when you think about it. These men are being forced to go to war, but most of them will die anyway. Kubrick noticed the insane choices that the soldiers faced. Go to war and die. Don't go to war and still be executed or at least thrown into a prison. Go to war and try to survive what is essentially a suicide mission and end up getting artillery shot at you by your own people. And when this situation is brought up later, it's seen as a chance for someone to get promoted. It's not taken as seriously as the action brought to the men that declined a suicide mission. No accountability, no real consequence, just progression. And that's when it really hits you. This isn't about winning or losing, it's about maintaining the structure, no matter the cost. And then it all leads to the executions, which again, they don't feel dramatic in the way you'd expect. They're not built up as some big emotional climax. I mean, you've got the priest and the moments before, but you know that nothing can change. They're just being carried out, and that's what makes them hit harder, because by this point, you know these men were never really the problem. They were just the easiest solution, the scapegoats. And the film doesn't try to dress it up or make it feel meaningful. It just shows it for what it is, unfair, final, done. And then you get the ending, which feels completely different to everything that came before it. There's this German girl brought out onto stage to sing for the soldiers. And at first they're not taking it seriously, they're laughing and shouting, not really paying attention. But as she keeps singing, something changes. The room goes quiet, and you start to see it on their faces. They're not thinking about war anymore. They're not thinking about orders or ranks or anything like that. They're just listening. And you see a few of them start to tear up. And it's such a small moment, but it says so much. Because for the first time in the film, everything else kind of disappears. There's no system in that moment, no hierarchy, no pressure, just people. And I think that's why it works so well as an ending. Because after everything you've seen, the decisions, the consequence, the way people get treated, it reminds you of what's actually been lost in all of it. Not just lives, but something more basic than that, just humanity. And I think what surprises me most of all about this film is that this is early Stanley Kubrick. Like, this isn't him at his peak, this is his fourth film. And yet it already feels so clear. Not in a super polished way, but in the sense that you can already see what he's interested in. People being put into situations that they can't control. Decisions being made by people who don't have to deal with them. And everything playing out in a way that just makes it feel uncomfortable. And when you think about the films he goes on to make, like Dr. Strangelove, where war is treated as something almost absurd and comedic, or even later with Full Metal Jacket, it doesn't feel like he suddenly changed direction. It feels like he kept refining what was already there, which makes this film feel a lot more important than I expected. Not because it's perfect, but because it already contains so much of what he would go on to do. And I think that's why this film stuck with me and made me want to make this video, because I didn't go into it expecting any of this. I thought I was just watching an older war film, but it ended up being something a lot more frustrating than that. Not frustrating in a bad way, but just in the sense that it doesn't give you anything to hold on to. There's no sense of justice, no sense of things working out. It just plays out the way that it does, and you're left sitting with it. And that's what makes Paths of Glory stand out to me. It's not really about the war itself, it's about what happens around it. the decisions, the consequences, and the people who get caught in the middle of it. I went into this expecting something pretty standard, but it ended up feeling way more real than I thought it would, because it doesn't try to make anything look heroic, it doesn't try to make anything feel justified. It just shows things as they are, and it shows war in a way that we've never seen it before.